People don't know what carbon is. What the hell is net zero anyway? I don't even know.
People don't give a fuck about saving the environment, and it's not really like an accurate way of describing it. You're saving yourself.
He blacklisted me and my firm from ever working for any New York State agency again because we checkmated him and he was pissed. Mandela was the only saint I've ever met. He had no anger after 27 years of imprisonment. He had transcended it.
It is remarkable when like you and Dick Cheney and AOC all hate the same person and other people are like, no, that person's misunderstood.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Find Out podcast. Eventually, you'll have the full crew here. Rich is late, per usual. We have Zach and Luke. And we have a very, very exciting guest that I think you all are going to enjoy today. And even if you don't know his name, you definitely know some of the work that he has done over his illustrious career, which is the first time I think I've used illustrious on this show. We have David Fenton with us, who is a long time, I think you referred to yourself when we met as a progressive provocateur?
Agitator. Well, I'm a provocateur too.
Okay, well, both of those things. So one started Fenton Communications, which is a very well-known and very big progressive agency, and has also done things like work with John and Yoko, Bruce Springsteen on the No Nukes concert, the no fracking stuff with Yoko and Sean Ono Lennon in 2013. And so, and he also has a book that I have right here called The Activist Media Handbook, which has a lot of great information on how to talk about progressive issues and how to make sure that progressives win. So David Fenton, welcome to the Find Out podcast.
Sure. Great to be here. What are we going to find out?
Oh, we're going to find out. Well, we're going to pepper you with questions.
Okay.
Actually, one of the things I want to talk to you about, and I apologize that we didn't bring it up, but I didn't know it was going to happen, was last night in New York in particular, three Democratic Socialists ousted, well, two ousted incumbents, and one took an open seat that was held by what I would argue is probably more of a mainstream candidate. Brad Lander beat Dan Goldman in New York 10, my old district. And there were a couple other races as well. I just want to get your initial reactions to what we saw last night, because we're hearing people saying this is anti-Semitism coming out, or this is like socialism and it's going to destroy the country. I assume you have a different perspective.
I think it's terrific. Hooray that the establishment's getting overthrown. It's a failure. It hasn't worked. The sclerotic parts of the Democratic Party, which isn't very democratic, it's, I'm afraid, out of touch with the people. It's not helping us. So bravo to Zoran and AOC and DSA for running candidates that have authentic public appeal. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. And by the way, as a student of language, I'm amazed that they're doing so well while calling themselves socialists.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's probably too late, but, you know, I wish they'd change their name because, you know, basic framing, right?
Yep.
The brain has circuitry. And when you say the word socialist, to most people, it's a negative. So, like, a lot of us think that if Bernie hadn't called himself a socialist, he would have won. But we need democratic socialism. I'm just not sure we should call it that.
What would you call it? Do you have a thought?
Well, I like the term economic democracy, that there should be checks and balances on all kinds of power, not only on political power. We have to have checks and balances on excessive corporate power, or we're going to have increasing feudalism. That's the direction we're heading, is a revival of feudalism. You know, the Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis said very pithily once, you can have a democracy or you can have great concentrations of wealth, but you can't have both.
Right.
And we're seeing that play out in real time, not for the first time. So, you know, history is this pendulum of excessive concentrations of wealth, followed by rebellion that redistribute it, and then excessive concentrations of wealth. So I think the rebellion is starting, thank goodness.
So what does that look like, right? Because I think a lot of people are saying this is a reaction to Trump. And a lot of people are saying this is a reaction to Democrats who take billionaire money. And, you know, it's hard to sometimes try to find a one answer fits all because these districts are all different. What do you think is actually happening here? Because, I mean, Congressman Espaillat lost, who was a 5-term incumbent, had never really had any challenges before. He lost by 4 points. Dan Goldman lost by 30 points, like a 30-term or 2-term congressman in a safe blue district. So is this Trump? Is this economic populism or economic democracy? What do you think's going on here?
Well, it's more than one thing. People are fed up with the corruption at the high levels of the Democratic Party, AIPAC corruption, other kinds of corporate corruption, and the self-perpetuation of Democratic elites who have abandoned the needs of average and working people for decades, by and large. People are fed up that the Democratic Party isn't rising to oppose Trump and fascism in effective ways. I mean, you know, Chuck Schumer writes them a letter. So I think it's all of that. But it's also that people are struggling. Prices are incredibly high. You know, the ever increasing profit margins of the biggest concentrated monopoly companies are fleecing people, and they know it. So they're demanding action. Now, of course, this corruption in the Democratic Party extends to all kinds of issues, you know, including the climate issue, which is what I tend to focus on. I call it the survival issue. And the Democrats are really failing us on that issue, which is really the Uber issue. And it's the Uber economic issue, because at the rate we're going, the climate's going to destroy our economy. It's going to raise the price of food. It's going to collapse insurance markets and then mortgage markets, because if you can't get insurance, you can't get mortgages. And all this refugee crisis that climate change is causing is also economically disruptive. And where are they? I'll tell you where they are. They're telling people not to talk about it.
Right. Why do you think that is? Because like there are several issues that are going on right now that are hot button issues that seem to make a good connection to climate, like the data center issue with AI, where you know you see younger people. Luke could speak to this better than I can, but like people are very, very angry about AI. It's I think both from an economic issue, but also an environmental issue. So do you see a path here where Democrats could actually have a winning issue here if they made those connections?
I think it's always been a winning issue. You know, look at the way Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island talks about this, that Trump is raising your cost of energy, your electric bill, your gas bill, to reward his corrupt fossil fuel donors. That is what is happening. He is raising your prices and transferring it to the fossil fuel companies, which are already among the richest companies on earth. So, of course, we should talk about this. And, you know, I also think that there's an incredible elitism and contempt for everyday people in the notion that we cannot simply explain how the burning of fossil fuels is endangering our way of life and our economy. And we have in front of us clean technology that's cheaper and faster and better. Of course, we can explain this to people. Of course, there's a related problem here, which is that both the Democrats and, I'm afraid, the environmental NGOs don't talk about this issue in effective ways. You know, people don't know what carbon is. What the hell is net zero anyway? I don't even know. You know,
I don't
it's
know.
ridiculous. But we know how to talk about this in a way that people get. For example, you say, we have put a blanket of pollution around the earth. And what do blankets do? They trap heat. It's like when you were a kid and your father or mother put an extra blanket on you while you were sleeping and you woke up sweating. That's what we're doing to the earth. And people go, oh, pollution, bad. I don't like that. Overheating, bad. I don't like that. So, of course, we can explain this to people. And we also have an incredible moral issue. And all successful social movements are moral movements in the end, which is a small group of very incredibly greedy, mostly men, at the oil, coal, and gas companies are determined to make every last drop of profit off every last drop of fossil fuels, while knowing, they have known for 50 years that this was going to cause extreme weather, destroy the economy, and make the earth unlivable. And they don't care. So basically, it's them against your property, your prosperity, your health, and your children. Don't tell me we can't explain that to people. Of course we can.
Sure. I have a question about that too, because like for me, the biggest barrier seems to always be that like we sort of live in a catastrophe culture where until it's like a personal catastrophe, people are like, I don't care. Doesn't really matter. So like, how do we overcome the lack of, I mean, if you're in an economic or in an environmental disaster because of climate change, it's easy to talk to you. But people who aren't, how do we communicate to them and make them understand the urgency without them feeling the urgency in their everyday life? That's to me the biggest hurdle to jump.
Well, look at the heat wave happening in Europe right now.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the wildfires. Look at the stronger hurricanes. It's happening now. But the problem is we don't talk about it, and the media doesn't talk about it.
That's true.
The television media, which is still very powerful, I mean, the biggest followings on TikTok are still the networks, for example. They don't talk about this. You could have the worst hurricanes and wildfires and droughts ever, and they won't say this comes from the burning of fossil fuels and we need to transition off them as soon as possible. So people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes it a low saliency issue because they don't hear about it. The Yale research shows that only 12% of Americans see or hear anything about global warming on social media. And most of what they see comes from the bad guys, because our community is what we call climate hushing, not talking about it. It's a new form of climate denial, in effect. And we don't put resources into communicating this to the public. We shy away from it. So guess what happens? It becomes a low saliency, low importance, not important voting issue for most people. I think that's our fault.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I've always found one of the bigger problems with it is that a lot of people message it as saving the environment.
Mm.
People don't give a fuck about saving the environment, and it's not really like an accurate way of describing it. Right. You're saving yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's also this whole saving the earth message. The earth is going to be fine.
Right.
We're not fucked.
Without us, yeah.
Once we're gone. That's true. The planet will be fine. I always tell people, talk about people and what people care about and what they love and what they cherish and treasure. Don't talk about the environment. That's an abstraction. The minute you say that word to most people, what they hear is, you're not talking about me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, let's go into an example that you were part of that actually did work, which is the fracking ban campaign that you worked on with I can't even believe I'm saying these people's names, but Yoko and Sean Ono Lennon, Susan Sarandon, and other folks in New York State. I think
Paul McCartney was involved too.
Oh wow.
Oh, who's that? Oh, just Paul McCartney. Sir Paul McCartney. We're going to try to get him on next. Maybe you can help us with that. Tell us a little bit about that, because you got fracking banned in New York State. What did and you were trying to convince a governor who is a Democrat, but a kind of and very moderate, let's say. You don't need to get into all that.
Mafioso Democrat.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
How'd you do that?
Well, I didn't do it, but what happened is there was a very strong grassroots movement to try to stop fracking in New York State. And then Yoko and Sean organized a group called Artists Against Fracking. And the synthesis of the grassroots and the celebrities is what did it. It created enormous pressure on Governor Cuomo, and he eventually did the right thing and banned fracking in New York. I think it's still one of only 2 states that have done this. We made the issue about fracking about water, about the quality and safety of your water, because while the gas companies lie about this all the time, a huge percentage of the fracking wells leak and put poison chemicals in your water. Remember Josh Fox's movie Gasland, where people could light their tap
Yeah.
water on fire? Well, that's real. So
Right.
we started doing press junkets where Yoko and Sean and Susan Sarandon would charter a bus, and we would take reporters to nearby Dimock, Pennsylvania, where they could go into people's houses next to fracking sites and see people light their tap water on fire.
Jesus.
Right.
You know, my favorite moment of that campaign was Cuomo kept refusing to meet with Yoko Ono. And we just couldn't believe it. He wouldn't even meet with her. So we made a television ad. And it's Yoko looking in the camera saying, Governor Cuomo, you haven't been able to meet with me to talk about fracking. So I'm going to show you what it looks like here on TV.
Oh, I bet he didn't like that.
And we used John Lennon's song, Just Give Me Some Truth, as the vocal. And she comes back on and says, nice to meet you, Governor. So he called her, 10 minutes later and finally met with her. But he was so pissed. By the way, he blacklisted me and my firm from ever working for any New York State agency again because we checkmated him and he was pissed.
I told you before, and I did work for him for a little while before all the really gross stuff came out. And he is somebody that doesn't move unless pressured. Like it was the same with the legalization of marijuana. It was the same with marriage equality. None of these things were going to happen without pressure, which is why it's so important, I think, for you to tell your story, because you guys, I'm using the royal you, and I actually have a photo from the book where things come flying out, but that bottle right there is tap
filthy water,
guys.
yeah.
Ugh.
Jesus. And and then also in the book you talk about how in one of the homes, the people had to leave the windows open when they took showers because they were worried that the methane would explode that was coming out of the shower head.
That was by order of the Pennsylvania Board of Health. There were labels on the showers saying you must open the window when you take a shower in here. And of course, the lying gas companies use, oh, well, that's naturally occurring methane in the water.
No. Just no. I mean,
not
it's just
what my
crazy.
water looks like. My God.
Yeah, but we're in danger. Kathy Hochul, the governor in New York, is talking about rescinding the fracking ban. So,
Really?
the struggle never ends.
God.
Never.
Why?
Well, because of the economic interests involved, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because we have a democracy that's corrupted by big money, and it doesn't have to be. And I'm really quite sure that what you're seeing in these election results is the beginning of an uprising where we will eventually restrict all this big money in politics, or we'll have no democracy.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that, it's always going to start in the more quote unquote progressive places and then it spreads, right? But like we've also seen, I'm curious to get your take. And again, I'm sorry, this was not something that I prepped you for.
That's all right.
There's the guy in Nebraska, Dan Osborne, who is not a Democrat. He's not a Republican, and he is an independent. Do you think that those types, and he did very well. He ran 2 years ago. He lost by a couple of percentage points, and he's doing it again in a much friendlier climate. Do you think those types of, because he has some progressive issues on his side, like unions and things like that. Do you think that that's an entry into the red states to start to win back some of those places, or are those lost causes?
Well, I don't know about him, but look at James Tallarico in Texas.
Yep.
And he's surging and doing incredibly well. And look how he talks about our issues. He says, well, the issue in America isn't between left and right. It's between top and bottom.
Right.
And these billionaires are using their algorithms to divide us, and we must stop them. We can't let them. And of course, he's doing this using biblical references and moral structures of language, and he's doing fantastically. So there's no reason that we can't get swing voters back on our side. If you follow the work of the great linguist George Lakoff, you familiar with Lakoff? Lakoff. He wrote a really important.
Oh, he's on your. He wrote your intro, right?
He wrote the intro to my book. Cool. For people interested in the language of politics, his book "Don't Think of an Elephant" is essential. Now try that. Don't think of an elephant. That's framing.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
so Lakoff, I'll explain this briefly. So he uses family metaphors to explain politics. The right is the strict father, morality. Progressives are nurturing parents. And in between, there are people he calls the biconceptuals. They have both moral worldviews, strict father, right, nurturing parent, left. And the way you win in elections is to activate the progressive side of the biconceptual mental structure. And that's what Tallarico is doing by
Mhm.
talking about morality and religion.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't doing that, then he would allow the other side to activate the strict father, which is fear and hatred and watch out for these immigrants. Whereas Tallarico is activating love your neighbor. So I have high hopes for him. He's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's been incredible. And I think that like all of the polling, which I mean, who knows at this point, right, how accurate any of that is. But it does show, I mean, also it doesn't hurt that Republicans chose pretty much the most vile human being on earth to run against him, which
Yeah, we
is,
call him pedophile protector Paxton.
Nice.
there we go. Why isn't
Right.
everyone? I mean,
Triple P.
what's interesting is
That's why
that
Trump loves him so much. Then it makes sense. Full circle.
Or
It's a big
polluter
club.
protector Paxton.
That's
oh, there's
perfect.
so many, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that because, you know, I've seen Democrats be reluctant, especially with all this Epstein stuff, to talk about coddling pedophiles. Some are doing it, right? But it's interesting that you see Tallarico because there was this horrible case in Texas where there was a child rapist who his office basically made a plea deal and said he only had to serve 30 days in jail.
Right.
And Tallarico jumped right on it, which
Yeah.
I think was really smart. But Democrats haven't really, like, again, there's exceptions, but like for the most part, they're not leaning into that. I assume you think that's a mistake.
Yes, of course it's a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, Democrats have to understand something. You have to be authentic. You can't overthink what you say and do. You have to be yourself because the audience, the voters can smell it. You know, those of us who know Hillary Clinton and Al Gore, for example, know them as warm, gracious, authentic, amazing people.
Right.
And yet when the camera goes on them during the presidential, they're frozen and they're overthinking. They're listening to a million pollsters and they're not themselves, and the audience can smell it. You know, I thought about inviting Tallarico on my new podcast, The Fenton Forecast, and I decided I wouldn't do it because I don't want to hurt him. If he associates with me, Paxton might make it an issue.
Yeah, but I just think like I think you're right. The authenticity thing, it's sort of also getting overlooked in these three races from last night in New York City because they're all like everyone wants to make this be about AIPAC and anti-Semitism. But first of all, one of the guys who won is also Jewish, Brad Lander, and was a guy who literally represented that most of that district in the city council for a decade. And so people knew him, and I lived in his district.
And he's a great guy.
Great guy.
I know Brad. He's terrific.
Oh, he's great.
Look,
he's great.
Look, this anti-Semitism thing is being weaponized. You know, I'm Jewish. I helped start J Street, which is the group that is pro-Israel but pro-Palestinian state. We don't believe Israel's security is met by a permanent occupation of another people. You know, read a little history. Permanent occupation means permanent insecurity. It's ridiculous. So the fact that Jewish voters in New York are rejecting this reflexive pro-Netanyahu, pro-occupation policies is very healthy. It's terrific.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's where I get confused. Obviously, I live here. I am not Jewish. My wife is half Jewish, but like that's as close as we get on our side. But that district is very heavily a Jewish district, and it is not like this is not a rejection of Judaism. Like
no
this
way.
was a rejection of the Bibi Netanyahu government and their use of AIPAC to basically influence elections, and that is the issue. And I'm curious, and I want to hear you because this is really important right now in the Democratic Party. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, if you are anti-AIPAC, you are anti-Semitic.
Nonsense.
Please
This
dive
is
into that a little bit.
nonsense. You know, look, real Jewish morality does not include killing 50,000 children. And they're doing it again in Lebanon now. And they're lying about it. There isn't a Hezbollah fighter in every apartment in Lebanon. It's nonsense. This is a scorched earth territorial expansion on the part of a very militaristic government. And none of it could happen without US support. And it has to stop. And you cannot tell young people who see reality on their phones, when you look at a satellite image of Gaza and every building is down, again, there was not a Hamas fighter in every building at every moment in Gaza. So this does meet the technical definition of genocide. I used to really hesitate to use that word and the word apartheid for Israel. I've been to Israel. But, my Jewish friends in the human rights community have all explained to me that, yes, it meets the technical definition of genocide, especially the purposeful starvation, and it meets the technical definition of apartheid. You go to Israel, there are separate roads and separate everything for Palestinians and Jews. So, this has got to be rejected. If you support Israel, many former Mossad and military people in Israel agree that the policies of this super right-wing government in Israel are undermining Israeli security. So that is a legitimate position. And how is that anti-Semitic?
Yeah.
I think
It's a good question.
something that really just stuns me is that for so many on the left, it seems to be this foreign concept that somebody would use religion as cover to shepherd in a brutal, unethical, inhumane political angle or military angle. We're watching the Republicans do it with Christianity in the United States right now.
Sure.
Netanyahu has done the exact same thing by saying anyone who disagrees with me is an anti-Semite, when he is not a good example of what Judaism is and what a Jewish person can do in this world. Yet
he's a murderer.
that.
Now, look, Hamas is evil. Hamas should be prosecuted and brought to account. There's no question about it. To be against Netanyahu is not to be pro-Hamas. But the fundamental issue is the occupation. And the notion that you're going to permanently occupy another people and their land is ahistorical, poppycock, and amoral. It's not going to work. And eventually they're going to have to come to terms with it, unless they want to kill them all.
I mean, I think Bibi wants to.
I agree
it
with
seems
you.
like obviously he just wants a parking lot. I mean, he's
Yep.
gotten a lot of it in Gaza, and now he's got his sights turned on Lebanon, right? This whole deal, this really wonderful deal that Trump put together that is like quite possibly the shittiest deal in the history of the universe compared to where we were before. But like, it kind of seems like Netanyahu is kind of actually giving Trump the middle finger, and it's like, I want to go wipe out everybody in Lebanon too. And so one of the things as a non-Jewish person, I'm always I'm very nervous about getting into that conversation because I don't want to come across as anti-Semitic. But everything you said just now is what I would say, right? Like, this is not about Judaism. This is about a government that has made an active decision that they want to wipe out a population.
Like wipe out, but they certainly want to. They're willing to go into amoral, illegal, massive overkill for how they perceive their security, and we have to reject it so that the Jewish voters in New York are increasingly rejecting this as one of the healthiest things happening. And the one of the big problems we have in Israel, by the way, is that Sheldon and Miriam Adelson bought the biggest newspaper in Israel. And it's a free newspaper. It's broadly circulated, and they turned it into racist, anti-Arab propaganda. And it had a huge impact in turning Israeli public opinion really into a super anti-Arab majority now. And again, I'm sympathetic. There have been attacks on Israel that are abhorrent,
Right.
but you have to keep these things in perspective. So the notion, the viewpoint that real security for Israel, which is what I want, and I think most people want, will not come from occupation. That point of view, the Israeli public almost never hears anymore.
Right. Well, and I want to ask, I keep going through these your book because all these like big names that you worked with, but this is another one, which I don't think I need to say who that is other than you on one side and
Right.
Nelson Mandela on the other. And you worked on ending apartheid in South Africa in the 1980s. Are there lessons from that fight that we could take for what is happening now in Gaza?
Well, Mandela was always against the Israeli occupation. He was very vocal about it. And, he saw it as a liberation struggle, but he was never anti-Israel. I mean, Mandela was, like the Pope. He was a saint. He was one of the most deeply moral people, of modern history. And it was the great honor of my working life to volunteer to help him. I started working for the African National Congress of South Africa in the 1980s, actually under the Reagan administration, when they branded Mandela and the ANC as a communist terrorist organization. Right. Mandela was the only saint I've ever met. He had no anger after 27 years of imprisonment. He had transcended it. He was the most remarkable human being. And to show you the difference in the time, so we organized this movement that succeeded in getting Congress to pass sanctions against South Africa. American companies were prohibited by law from dealing with them. And that great racist Ronald Reagan vetoed the legislation. And think about this, we overrode his veto. Imagine that happening today.
Oh, wow.
That's right.
Forget it.
No.
We got both houses of Congress to override his veto, and sanctions became the law of the land. And without that, Mandela would probably have died in prison.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was an incredible struggle. And again, it was a moral struggle. And all successful struggles and social movements seize and hold the moral high ground. And this is what the Democrats need to do against oligarchy, the tech bros, fascism, the new feudalism, extreme income inequality, and the destruction of a livable planet. These are the moral issues. Healthcare, moral issue. So talk about it, be real, and you'll win.
Well, David, we got one more question. We were only going to do 30 minutes. We blew right through it because this has been such a fascinating conversation. I'm going to put a hypothetical to you. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it. I didn't talk to anybody about this. If you could choose one of these three people to have dinner with again, and you've met them all, which one are you picking? We'll put Nelson Mandela in there, John Lennon, who you also knew, and Bruce Springsteen, who you worked on the No Nukes campaign. Which one of those guys do you want to have? Would you want to see one more time?
And I love Bruce, and Lennon was a great artist and public figure, but Nelson Mandela was a saint. So
yeah,
definitely
he sets the bar pretty high.
That was tough.
Quick story. So
Yeah.
I was in Johannesburg for the 1994 presidential election when Mandela was elected. Right. So one day he took me to a meeting he had with his former jailers. Mandela was building a house in Johannesburg, and he wanted it to be an exact replica of the house that he lived in on the grounds of Pollsmoor Prison in the latter years of his imprisonment.
Oh.
So he took his architect and he met with his former jailers. And I'm watching these guys joke and backslap and have a great time. And I'm like, could this be real? That's how transcendent he was.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to do that after, was it
No,
a
I think
27
I'd be
years of
machine
imprisonment?
gunning people. I don't
Yeah,
know about you.
You know,
exactly.
there's a real peace in letting things go. It's impossible sometimes, but oh my God,
Oh, I can't relate. I have no idea.
carrying around grudges and resentment and hate is incredibly heavy. It's very difficult, but like it doesn't mean it's not warranted. But there are better people.
Hey, can I suggest a guest for you guys on
Sure.
the
Sure.
Israel-Palestine issue? One of the more interesting guests I had on my podcast, The Fenton Forecast, is a great Palestinian writer and academic and journalist who lives in New York. Her name is Rula Jebriel. Rula Jebriel.
I
She's
think I know that name.
incredibly brilliant and articulate. And, you know, she's anti-Hamas and she's anti the occupation.
Mhm.
And she's worth following, Rula Jebriel. She would blow your audience's mind. She's brilliant and she
Okay.
brings the moral case very clearly.
Well, we will definitely look into that. That's our first on-air recommendation for a
Damn.
guest.
Okay, great.
So we'll have to check that out. David Fenton, thank you very much. Everybody go follow the Fenton Forecast. I think one of the episodes, I did listen to one episode, it was super fascinating. You had Billie Eilish's mom on, who I did not know
Maggie Baird.
is a activist and has been for a very
She's
long
a
time.
climate
That's pretty
activist.
fucking
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and it
That's
helps
cool.
to understand how Billie, you know, she's obviously very progressive. You
Yeah.
hear her, and it's obviously very clear that it comes at least from her mother. So go check
And
that
Dad,
out.
yeah, and they
Oh,
were
Dad too?
homeschooled.
Oh wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's
Progressive
a whole
homeschool
different
is,
thing,
Billy
unusual,
and her
yeah.
songwriting brother Phineas, both homeschooled.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and
Interesting.
Maggie runs a nonprofit called Support and Feed
Mm.
that feeds plant-based food to people in food deserts and in food
Oh, that's
distress
great.
situations. Yeah, she's remarkable.
Wow.
Well, go check out that. Also, pick up the book, The Activist Media Handbook: Lessons from 50 Years as a Progressive Agitator / Provocateur. So I had to throw that in there. Anyways, David, thank you very much.
Sure,
and
nice to see you all.
For everybody else, we'll be right back. And we're back. I was just telling Rich to stop typing. David's great. I'm glad that we could have him on the show, because there's such such a wealth of knowledge and all these like crazy people that he worked with. Like when he told me a couple weeks ago, we had lunch and he was like, "Oh yeah, I knew John Lennon." I'm like, "What?" "Oh yeah, Nelson Mandela." "Oh yeah." I'm like, "Huh?" Like
Crazy.
it's just crazy, and
That's
it's
crazy
interesting
things.
to see some of the parallels between previous fights and now. But it was, I think, a lot of stuff to learn from him for sure.
The thing that I keep thinking about, I mean, you know, he's such a savvy communications professional. You know, we've talked about the Democrats' messaging problem, but it's like, how much of this have we done to ourselves? Because we are, I know Democratic politicians, especially the ones who are not really passionate with a ton of conviction, they're trying to not say the wrong thing, you know, for just within Democrats. And then Republicans triple down on it. And then the moderate Democrats are trying to meet Republicans halfway. And so they're saying the most tepid shit possible. And so even like thinking about what he said about Al Gore and Hillary Clinton, even the really high quality people, really principled, smart policy writers, the second the camera turns on, it's like they're trying to thread the needle between being super far left without saying anything super far left, without pissing off Republicans and donors, trying to sound good as a progressive politician, but without saying anything of substance. It's like a perfect cocktail of how to be inauthentic. And we're just obeying, like they're just doing it anyway, even though we're finding out in these cycles over the past year and a half that when you don't do that and you're a little bit messy, even all the way as far as Graham Plattner, you have some controversies, people still vote for you. They still support you as long as they really believe that that's the version of you that is the real version.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I think that Democratic voters are tired of the same people saying the same things over and over again and nothing changing.
Right.
And I think that you're seeing that. I mean, obviously every race is different, and there's exceptions. And like I said, but the Lander thing shouldn't really surprise people because he's represented that district and everybody loves him anyways. So it's like not, but the other ones, it's like, yeah, like if you have been sitting on your ass or not communicating what you're doing to fight back against the Trump administration, voters are going to throw you out.
Yep.
Like, I
No
mean,
question.
I don't know a lot about espionage,
Yeah.
and I don't want to get into that too much because I just don't know a lot about it. I didn't hear him fighting, screaming, yelling, being, going to protests, like trying, Brad Lander. Actually, this is another thing. Brad Lander went to an ICE detention facility
Mhm.
and got arrested by trying to protect somebody
Yeah.
that they were yanking in there. Voters see that and they go, I want that. I want somebody who's going to fight because I'm terrified. Also, Democrats have told me that Donald Trump is an existential crisis. So I want representatives who act like we're in an existential crisis. Those ones don't. And that's the reality. They're good policy people. Dan Goldman is a fantastic interrogator in hearings, but
Mhm.
he's kind of stiff, and and the AIPAC thing is real. And they were like, well, I've got this guy over here who's willing to put his body in between an immigrant and ICE. Which one do you think I'm going to pick?
The time and a place. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, and I think that doesn't mean that the DSA is taking over the Democratic Party, like
No.
all these stupid takes have been this morning. It's
Yeah.
New York City, guys. We've always had leaders who are slightly more conservative than the people who live here, and you are now seeing a course correction because of that.
Yeah.
And so if this isn't like, oh, in Iowa you need to run a Mamdani, you'd be
No.
an idiot.
It'd be insane. I mean, that's
Well-
the thing I think people need to take away from this is yes, there were victories outside of New York City that also were DSA winners, but remember who's voting. It's a bunch of Democrats motivated to vote, right? That's a totally different thing than everybody can vote. Then you have a very different. It's the
Right.
same reason that Biden ended up, the Democratic establishment in 2020 was like, we need to stop Bernie Sanders because, he's playing great in the primary, but this dude's going to fucking lose if you throw him out wide. And it's the same shit here where it's like, they'll win in their little segments where they're doing fine. But if you play a 28 card of just go all in on DSA, see ya, you lose. I mean, it's different things.
It reminds me though of Obamacare, where people were like, "I hate Obamacare, but I like the Affordable Care Act," and or they would
Right.
say,
It's fucking stupid.
or they would say, "I hate Obamacare because it's socialism." But then when you ask them about all of the individual components of
Yeah, they like 'em all.
Obamacare,
Yeah.
they liked every single thing that was in it. I
Or
think
take the government's hands off my Medicare.
well,
example?
and that's where I was going to go with that too.
Oh,
Is
sorry. Yeah.
well, no. I mean, you're right there. Socialism is this dirty word because Democrats have not defended it and Republicans have spent 40, 50 years attacking it. But when you actually ask people, do you like Social Security? That's socialism. Do you like FDIC and NCUA protections on your bank accounts? That's
Yep.
socialism. Do you like Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, unemployment insurance? Just because we pay for some of the bills, just because it's a payroll taxes, that's all. It's still socialism. You can just squarely call all of those things
Right.
socialist. And if you stripped all of those things away, the people who get hit the hardest are 80% Republican, 65 plus senior citizens who
Oh, yeah.
need the most help and support from
Yeah.
the government.
Well, I would actually argue that this is less. I think this is. I mean, you tell me what you guys think, but I think this is less than a DSA thing. That it is a authenticity thing. That they want candidates who seem to believe what the words are that are coming out of their mouth. They're not listening to talking points. Barack Obama wasn't a DSA guy, and look at the love and support he got because he was authentic and he was very clearly against the Iraq War. But he wasn't a DSA. I mean, they tried to project him as this Muslim sleeper cell murderer guy or whatever. But I think if you can be authentically moderate as long as you are projecting, depending on the districts. I think it's more about that than just being I'm a DSA person. Those people just happen to
Yeah, I mean, if somebody
practice what
comes
they
out and says
preach.
I'm a big DSA person and then they don't actually fucking push any of this, it's not like they're gonna get
Right.
elected.
Right.
People are still just as weary of another fucking Fetterman as they were 2 months ago.
Oh, we hear that all the time, right? About especially
Yeah.
Plattner. There's a new, which even that just doesn't. People are saying that don't understand the two situations, but yeah, if Graham Plattner ends up having a stroke, maybe he turns conservative. But you could say that about literally anybody. So I that's yeah. Anyways, but it's interesting to hear David say though we didn't dig into it. We should have, but like Yuri said, if Bernie Sanders was just a Democrat, he might have won that primary. But because he was outside of the party and there was so much socialism attached to him.
Yeah.
Because when you listen to what he actually wants to do, like, is much of that outside of the Democratic mainstream at this point?
Yeah.
Like what?
I think the problem with Bernie was not his policies. It's that he was very stubborn and he put next to no effort into winning Black and Hispanic voters across the South.
Oh, yes.
1000%.
I don't disagree with that.
He could have won them over if he had just gone and spoken to them.
Yeah.
But he gave the whole thing away.
Well, he kept
to-
talking about working class people, but like
Yeah.
in the
And then, like,
Democratic
only
side,
talk about-
most of the working class people are Black and Hispanic. So when
Yes.
you just don't like, I agree with that. I just
Yeah.
meant like if
policy wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think if you really dig into the Democratic Party, you find a pretty strong 50-50 split on even main things like universal healthcare. I
Yeah.
think like there's a lot of people who want it, but there's a lot of people who are like, I just like think like me, where I'm like, I like it, but how are you going to do it? And I think that's where Bernie
Boy, it
Sanders
was
lost
fucking
people
crazy.
like me.
Last night, I was doing that live, and
Yeah.
everybody here was busy, so I was like, all right, I guess I'll see if there's any MAGA dumb fucks that want to come up and talk to me. And this guy comes up, and he starts, I asked him, I said, so you voted for Trump? He says, yeah, and my wife voted for Harris. And I was like, that's crazy. I don't understand how you guys live together.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what does she think of you voting for Trump? And he was like, it's her least favorite thing about me. And I was like,
Shocker.
okay. I said, so what about it? He goes, well, I just, I don't really like the guy, but I just can't vote for a Democrat. And at least he has traditional values and he helped the border. And so then we went on this whole rabbit
Traditional
hole about
values.
how exactly he had fucked us, and also the traditional values that he upholds are not. He doesn't uphold them at all.
At all.
Then he immediately pivoted to like Mamdani and how Mamdani's ruining New York. And I said, give me one example of something bad he's done.
Right.
Silence.
And he goes, and I said, that's what I thought.
Right.
I said,
He's a
realized
socialist.
that, well, so that's where it went. He was like, that his kind of far left stuff is dangerous for the country. And I said, why? Because it helps people. I said, go ask a New Yorker if the having free child care for 0 to 2-year-olds is helpful. Ask them that. And then
Also,
he was like, well,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
and then I was like, you know that if we didn't do this Iran war, we could pay for that for the entire country for 0 to 4. You get
Yep.
that, right? And he was like, and then I was like, yeah. So like, why don't we just take an example? And then I was like, and universal health care, we could do that kind of thing if we didn't keep electing shit for brains that help billionaires. He's like, well, yeah, but I think everybody in this country would like universal health care. I said, yeah, I know they would.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Everybody wants it.
So what did he end? How?
So I ended.
He's so close.
I know.
This is the problem with the debate thing that I've done it a couple times, and every time I'm like, I just want to die because like this is ridiculous. Because he ends the thing with, and then he was like talking about his son and his 14-year-old son who like really likes Mamdani. I said, yeah, because he's young and Mamdani is helping people like him directly. I said, if you want to like just talk to your son about why he likes him, you might be surprised. But the conversation ends with, I said, man, I hope that I've changed your mind a little bit. I hope that maybe you'd consider voting for a Democrat. He goes, nope. And I was like, yeah, all right, I'm not doing this again.
Well, look, like
You're not gonna get
30%
them all.
of them are in a bubble, right? I mean, I think they just.
Well, but he wasn't even like, I mean, I guess it was probably there in the background if I had to bet. But he wasn't one of those where it comes up and he's like, oh, I hate black people. Because the next person that came up was like, I like Trump because he thinks gay people are mentally ill. And I was
Jesus
like, first of all,
Christ.
go
No, he
fuck
doesn't.
yourself. I'm not
I'm
talking
not even
to you
convinced
anymore.
he thinks that. Yeah.
No, I don't
But,
think he
like,
does.
No,
He
I don't
doesn't.
think so either. But like, that's somebody that's an example of somebody who's like fucked in the
There's
head,
no
ingrained.
point in
But
talking.
like the first guy was just critically dumb and like misinformed, but like unwilling to examine exactly how wrong he was.
Well, but remember, I mean, like, so it took me about 2 years to deconstruct religion. And there was a lot of back and forth. There were nights where I like would pray, like, I'm so sorry I questioned God and everything. Like I swore I was going to hell. And then like 2 days later, I'd be like, no, there's definitely nothing there. And then like 2 nights later, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'd be praying. This dude might say a lot. He would say a lot of things. He's not going to admit he's wrong on the spot, but I guarantee you're living in his head rent free right now. I bet he fell asleep and he was like, well, that little shithead with the nice feet made some really good points.
Well, he was nice. That was the thing. Everybody in the chat was like clowning me because I wasn't being mean. It's like, I'm not going to be mean to somebody who's just fucking stupid.
Match the energy. Yeah.
Yep.
I am polite until they're not polite, and then all holds are good to go.
Yeah.
But also, there's a whole bunch of people who saw that too, right? That they maybe didn't jump in because I think there's probably like the
Tell you what,
ones
my
that are
request
wishy-washy
filled up
aren't going to jump up
immediately.
to you, right? What's that?
My request filled immediately.
Oh, of
Like
course.
as soon as I said,
Yeah.
as soon
Oh,
as I brought
yeah.
one guy up and started talking to him, there was like 50 people requesting.
Of
Yeah, I
course.
mean,
Because if they're unpacking it and they're a little unsure of themselves, like you have to be a certain kind of person to even go and just ask a question that you might be wrong about, or like that
Right.
you might lose the debate. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there are probably 50 or 100 people who they're not quite sure. You know, they're either on the left, but they don't have their beliefs like fully fleshed out and validated, or there might be in the middle somewhere and they're just kind of watching for entertainment. So
Then
there
I had
is
a guy come
influence,
up and
even
tell
if you
me
don't win
about
that
how the
dude over.
Iraq war was justified and we needed to do everything we did. And I was like,
Iraq or Iran?
Iraq.
Oh,
He said the Iraq war was justified?
And that he fought there.
That's a hot take.
oh, I
because
mean,
he
he's
was-
just
because he was
That's
there.
different. Yeah,
he just doesn't want to. It's a sunk cost fallacy.
Well, yeah, I mean, he
100%.
doesn't. I mean, I would think that you wouldn't want to be like, I went over there and watched a bunch of people die for nothing, right? Which
Yeah.
exactly.
is kind of true.
Yeah.
And but like, I understand the reluctance there, but yeah, I mean, like, their main reason for going was showed to be a lie. So maybe we
Yeah,
all should do one
that's tough.
sometime. Should
That's
someone tell them to like invite people to come into the Thunderdome 3-on-1,
I'm telling
4-on-1?
We could do it whenever we want. Because as soon as I said I was doing it, suddenly there was.
Maybe we
people
should
in
do
there.
it.
I'm down for that 100%. That'd be great clips too.
It's got to be tag team though. You can't like, okay, who's going to take
Oh.
this one, or you rotate or something like that.
It's just like it's like a live
Oh, that's
version of the
interesting.
show, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
just
cool.
like we kind of all talk over
I
each
like
other a little
that.
bit.
I
Because
like
everyone
it.
tells us
But
we
if-
do.
But if it's truly 4 versus 1, and like we all want to rebut the same claim, I don't know.
What if we just say when you come up, you get to pick who you want to go against?
Ooh, I like
like
that.
that.
That's smart. I like that.
That's genius.
That's great.
Pick your opponent.
Pick your poison.
Pick your fighter.
Pick
Well,
your
now
fighter.
we're gonna have to make an announcement when we do this because people are listening now. They're like, I want to see that shit. But you can download those lives, right? And you
Yeah.
could put them up on YouTube. So maybe we should.
I think it's
do
great.
that.
We should definitely do that.
All right, we will do.
Nobody's
that.
going to pick you, Luke. They're all going to be scared of you. Everybody's going to be like, I want one of the soft, squishy MSNBC liberals.
They're gonna pick Tim until he tells them to get fucked.
I
Or
don't
they'll
think
pick
I don't
they'll
think
pick Zach and
they're not going to like what they get from
they're
Tim.
not
gonna
gonna
pick
like
Zach
my
and-
answer.
Yeah.
They're not gonna
they're
like
going to turn
mine.
Zach. They're going to turn Zach back into a Republican. They'll pick him and slowly,
Imagine that.
slowly
You
work
get a
him.
live view back. Yeah, fuck. I'm out, dude. I'm going right
It's like,
back.
that's a great point. I love the
Yeah.
Epstein class.
You're convincing me. Trump's not so bad.
Zach
Besides
goes into
all
some
of these
closet,
other things.
goes in the closet, finds a Confederate flag, and waving it around. I'm back, baby.
Let's go.
An eagle flies in through the window.
All right, well,
If he's got a MAGA hat or a Confederate flag in his house, then he was never converted
No.
sufficiently in the first
you
place.
were
You don't know
also
what I have.
you were a New York, New Jersey
Oh
Republican
yeah,
too.
dude. I never voted for Trump.
You were not the people who are going to come
No.
up on this and tell us terrible
Definitely not. I mean, like, look, I hated Trump, so I mean, come
shit.
on.
Yeah, no,
You know.
I don't. There's not a lot of Romney people who come up on these things and be like,
No.
I want to talk about whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Wait,
no,
wait.
that's-
It is remarkable when like you and Dick Cheney and AOC all hate the same person, and other people are like, no, that person's misunderstood. You're like, dude,
You're like,
what the fuck are you talking about?
oh my god.
Crazy.
All right, guys. Well, we have a meeting. Some of us have a meeting that we have to go to
Oh,
in 1
yes.
minute. So we are going to have to wrap this up. But it was great to have David on today. And oh, by the way, guys,
What?
I'm still 72 away from 100,000. Last
Go
Go
92
follow this
people.
guy. Come on.
my crying for followers on the last show did nothing.
No, they're all following
You
you.
probably lost like 50. They're like, God,
They're
that's
probably
clingy.
like, oh,
They're
that's
like,
so
get the
like
fuck away from
so
me.
gauche
Yeah.
to like talk about that. So
Yeah.
I would rather you get a membership at Find Out Media though.
There
That
you
would
go.
be I will stay in my 99,900 whatever to have more memberships. So
You say that
$9.99.
because you say that because you set it up so that if somebody subscribes, they auto follow at Tim Fullerton.
Imagine that.
No matter where you follow in the Find Out Media ecosystem, you're automatically added to at Tim Fullerton.
Perfect.
No matter where.
Abby.
Very.
I've been a digital guy for a long time. I know the tricks.
Sure.
All right, we're done.
All right.
Thank you everyone for listening. We will be back on Tuesday. I don't think we have a guest for Tuesday yet. We should probably talk about that. But we will be back on Tuesday. Until then, have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.